Definition of density is how closely packed the stuff is in an object. And by stuff, I mean like the molecules. So if we're talking about like phase transitions, the densest phase is going to be the solid phase, and the least dense phase is going to be the gas phase because we know that there's a lot of room in between those molecules. The more scientific definition of density is mass per unit volume. So, whatever amount of mass takes up a certain amount of volume. The more mass in that volume, the more dense the object is. Now, here's the equation right here, density equals mass divided by volume. Another way that you can look at this equation is that through that triangle method, if you've ever seen this before. And I like to remember how to write my variables in this triangle by remembering that you get your license at the DMV. Now, I know that a lot of you guys are getting your driver's license right now, so that makes it easy to remember. Now, when you do something like this with the triangle method, what you do is you cover up one of the variables, and then the other two variables show you how to solve for that variable that you covered up. So, for instance, density equals mass divided by volume. If you want to solve for mass, you cover up mass, and you can see that mass is equal to density times volume. And then if you want to solve for volume, you cover up volume, and you can see that volume is equal to mass divided by density. So that's just a quick way to kind of see how you can solve for those different variables in that equation. So let's talk about units of these things. So for mass, there's a lot of different units for mass, but in chemistry, most of the time we use grams. You guys know I also teach physics, so we use kilograms most of the time in physics, but most of the time in chemistry, you will see the mass in grams. Now, pounds is what we're used to in the United States, but of course, pounds is actually not a unit of mass, it's a unit of weight. But that is a whole other lecture in physics. So if you're more interested in that, then take my physics class next year. The next variable I want to talk about is volume. Now we can measure volume of solids, liquids, and gases in different ways. If I have something like a solid, let's see if I can actually draw a cube. Like this, right? I have a length, a width, and a height, and we would multiply the length times the width times the height in order to get our volume. So that's why we usually get a cubic, not a variable, a cubic unit here. So you'll see units for volume in things like centimeters cubed or meters cubed, something like that. Now, if we're talking about something like a liquid, which we measure in something maybe like a graduated cylinder like this, and you can see that you'll see the mark at like say 100 milliliters. So milliliters will be our unit for a liquid. And that's because it is, again, taking up a volume, but because it's liquid, it takes the shape of its container. So we might see milliliters for volume, or maybe liters is another unit for volume as well. So density, since we know it's mass divided by volume, you'll see units like grams per centimeter cubed. You might see a unit like grams per liter, like milliliter usually, because we're talking about smaller things there, or maybe kilograms per liter, or kilograms per meter cubed, or something like that. I shouldn't be putting equals signs here. I should be putting commas. So those are all units for density because we have a mass unit on the top and a volume unit on the bottom. So that is the definition of density and the different units that you might see for density.